On June 12, 2025, what should have been a routine international flight ended in an absolute tragedy, sending shockwaves through the entire aviation world. So today, we're going to break down the final moments of Air India Flight 171 and the ongoing search for answers.
And we're not talking about some old, aging aircraft here. The plane at the very center of this was a Boeing 787 Dreamliner, a modern, state-of-the-art jet, one of the most advanced flying in the skies today. The flight was carrying 242 people, that's passengers and crew. But just moments after taking off, 241 of them would tragically lose their lives. And out of all those souls on board, almost unbelievably, there was a single survivor, just one person, who somehow beat impossible odds. A disaster like this immediately brings up the one central, haunting question that we're going to be exploring. How could a modern jetliner like this simply fall out of the sky? Okay, so to even begin to understand how something like this could have happened, we really need to start by looking at the undisputed facts of that tragic day. Everything about this flight just seemed completely routine. It was Air India 171 flying a standard route from Ahmedabad to London Gatwick. On board, 242 people. It was a flight just like thousands of others, taking off all around the world. Nothing out of the ordinary. And the scale of this tragedy is just devastating. I mean, seeing these numbers side by side really shows the near total loss of life. Of the 242 people on that flight, 241 were killed. It's an almost incomprehensible outcome. But the catastrophe didn't stop with the aircraft. The plane came down in a residential area, right near the airport, hitting a hostel complex for a medical college. It claimed an additional 19 lives on the ground. So, with the basic facts of the crash established, investigators from India and really from around the world began the absolutely monumental task of finding some answers. Now, in any crash investigation, the very first step is to start gathering that initial evidence from the wreckage and the flight recorders. So, what were those first clues telling them? Well, the initial report from investigators pointed to some really alarming clues. First, a Mayday call confirmed the crew knew they were in serious danger. And then, crucially, the engine fuel cutoff switches, they were found in the off position. Now that means the fuel supply to both engines was stopped. This has led to a really prominent theory that contaminated fuel might have caused a catastrophic dual engine failure. You see, jet fuel needs to be incredibly pure. Any contaminant, something like water, can cause the engines to just flame out. It is so important to remember, though, that while these clues are compelling, the official investigation is very much still ongoing. These are only preliminary findings, not the final verdict. Because behind all the technical investigation and the twisted metal of the wreckage, there is a profound and just heartbreaking human story. The tragedy's impact on the local community was immediate and absolutely devastating. Among the victims on the ground was a 14-year-old boy who was killed by falling debris while he was asleep near his mother's tea stall. Because of the fire and just the sheer force of the impact, identifying the victims became a slow, agonizing process for their loved ones. It just compounded their grief. So to give these families some kind of closure, authorities had to rely on DNA identification. This is a highly precise forensic process, but it requires collecting samples from relatives and then painstakingly matching them in a lab, which is exactly why it takes so much time. As of the latest reports, all that painstaking work has led to the successful identification of 259 of the 260 total victims from both the aircraft and on the ground. It's just a monumental effort to bring those loved ones home. So beyond the immediate tragedy, an event of this magnitude, it has lasting implications for the entire aviation industry. And what makes this crash even more shocking is the aircraft involved. The Boeing 787 Dreamliner had a spotless safety record until this day. This was its very first fatal accident in commercial service, a really stark reminder that even our most advanced technology is not infallible. The sheer scale of the loss, with 260 total fatalities, makes this one of the darkest days in India's civil aviation history. It sent shockwaves not just through the nation, but through the entire global aviation community. The final investigation report will undoubtedly shape aviation safety for years to come. But as we all await those answers, the critical question really remains.
What will be the lasting lesson learned from Air India Flight 171?